Welcome to ProjectME, the podcast. I'm your host, Tiffany Carter, the founder of ProjectME, multimillionaire entrepreneur, former TV newscaster, money-making expert, female empowerment speaker, and self-proclaimed office supply addict. My mission is to take the mystery out of making big money. Every week on ProjectME, the podcast, I'll share success tips, strategies, and stories from other entrepreneurs, experts, and millionaires, showing you exactly how you can achieve your most exceptional life. Now let's get to it. Exciting announcement for all of my listeners. I've officially opened my exclusive group, the ProjectME Passive Income Posse, to the public. This group is by application only, so we can keep the group high vibe and spend our time, energy, and expertise only helping those of you who truly want massive success and impact. You get live weekly trainings from me, special guest coaches, and direct access to me and my business partner for all of your questions. To learn more and apply, go to projectmewithtiffany.com, click on Work With Me, and select ProjectME Posse. And of course, any questions, feel free to DM me at ProjectME with Tiffany. Welcome to ProjectME with Tiffany Carter, the podcast and posse. I'm your host, Tiffany, and today, all of you who are like, you know what? I'm good enough to be on the cover of Forbes. Like, I should be on TV. How in the heck did that girl, get a great media placement in Entrepreneur magazine? And she's like, barely out of college. Like, how is all this happening? I know I want it too. Some days you think you deserve it. Some days you don't. Listen, you guys, it's actually a lot easier than you think to get free press for your business. You don't have to be some Insta-famous person. You don't have to be a multimillionaire. You don't have to be Polly the influencer or any of those things. What you need to be is someone who's resourceful and someone who is willing to go and pitch yourself to the media. But you have to have certain things in place in order to increase your chances and in order to not make a really bad first impression, which, by the way, that line, we never have a second chance to make a first impression. And I don't want you to do that. But I do want you to have great hope that I don't care if you're a stay-at-home mom with a side hustle. I don't care if you're in your first year of business. I don't care if the line of business you're in doesn't sound sexy. Maybe you're in accounting or some form of contract law and you're like, well, who in the hell would do a story on me? Listen, when you work with the right people, you can always find a way to make a story sexy, to make a story sell, and you're going to learn about that today. Also, this episode is for you. If you are at a crossroads in your life and you are wanting to make a pivot, maybe it's a drastic sharp turn, maybe you're just veering off a little bit, but you're afraid of judgment, what your family will think. Maybe you're filled with judgment of your own. It's scary because you're doing something different than what's so familiar to you. You're going to hear from my amazing guest today on how she's pivoting and how she's navigated that, emotionally and mindset wise as well. And I feel it's really important for so many of you to hear this and give yourselves permission to do the same and go after what truly makes you happy versus what makes you money and what you know. So I brought on my friend, Nicole. She's a longtime PR specialist and the founder of the PR Concierge, which is a publicity agency for purpose-driven entrepreneurs. She knows what's up, people. Hey, Nicole.
Hi, Tiffany. Wow, that was a great opening.
Well, I laugh because I see, being a former newscaster, I think it's so funny when I see people put in their Instagram bios featured on at Forbes, at Inc. And it's it makes me kind of cringe and kind of laugh. But I also know so many people look at that and they're like, oh my God, I would love to have that. and they have all these expectations around what will happen if they get some media placement in one of these publications. So I kind of want to start off with you like giving us like the real, the down and dirty, like what generally happens when you get some kind of media exposure like that? Do you all of a sudden become a millionaire, Nicole?
That is a great starting question. First of all, I'm so grateful to be here. And this is so important, whether we're in, this COVID time or not. For 20 years, I've been doing publicity. So I've worked with all types of businesses, startups to, Fortune 500 companies, and everybody wants press, right? I hear it all the time. How do I end up on TV? I want to get in that magazine, or I want to be quoted in that online article. My feeling is this. The last few years, my purpose became very more intentional with working with entrepreneurs to remind them that no matter what place they're at in starting their passion or their business, they are worthy of press. I meet so many amazing, brilliant entrepreneurs and creators who are just starting out, or maybe in like year 3 or 5, and they think they're not worthy of getting those high level kind of A-list placements, if you will, in the high profile business magazines or the national TV shows because they haven't made maybe X amount of money yet, or they haven't, gotten through X amount of years of business. Not the case. In this day and age, like you said, people are looking for, the journalists and the media are looking for resourceful, authentic, purpose-driven, mission-oriented businesses to highlight. And if you are really on your game and you are really living your truth and you are doing a service that is truly providing a solution to consumers and to the world, you have a place to get press, whether it's in your local market or on a national level. I think one of the things that trips a lot of people up, though, is that they think if they engage in publicity right away, that they have to get all this national press to kind of be validated, right? And so not the case. I say to people all the time that getting on TV in your local market or getting a spread in a local regional magazine could be just as powerful. The big kind of misconception though with press is that it drives sales and will kind of change the trajectory of your business. While I've seen that happen, obviously if you end up on the Today Show or you end up with a spread for your product in Oprah magazine, or you're on the cover of Entrepreneur or Forbes, like you said, certainly that is going to do different things for your business. But your everyday kind of business owner, I think it's important for people to look at press as building brand awareness. It's consistency to have the public and the consumers see your brand. The media sees you as a resource, and the more and more you're out there, the other opportunities are going to naturally come. Over time, the combination of all of that will certainly bring more sales. But nothing is worse than when somebody engages in PR and thinks that as a result of one placement, they're going to get a specific ROI. You really have to engage in it with detachment to outcome and really let it kind of, take shape like anything, right? Like I always use the analogy when I teach my workshops. If you go to your trainer, you don't show up the first day and say, hey, I want a 6-pack tomorrow, or maybe you do, but the reality is we know that it's not going to happen overnight. Publicity, as you know, is the same thing. It takes time, consistency, and buildup to get to that place where those larger opportunities happen. And again, over time, the new customers and the sales will just naturally come.
I know that you want to think, oh, if I could just get in this top mom blog, or if I could just get in, a national magazine or something like that, then my business would take off. That's what she's talking about, that attachment. And unless like you said, Nicole, it is something like off the hook major, I can tell you right now, it impresses people, that I've been on TV and then I get interviewed on TV. You realize I've not made a fucking dollar off being on TV, aside from when I used to be employed by TV stations. I've not made $1 off it.
And it's very, very common, right? It just is. It's common for so many brands. So I applaud you for also sharing that. But it also, I think, so many people go into it thinking, again, that they're going to get a specific ROI. But the reality is what you're getting is a third-party credibility endorsement, which to me is super valuable, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where I see like TV stuff, even if it's, even if it is like one of these streaming TV stations or it's a local super small market, like you could live in Podunk, Idaho or whatever. And that, a tiny market, but it's still Fox or it's still CBS, right?
That's right.
And there's so much credibility that the average public, puts into the fact that you've been on TV. So that's what you're paying for. But I just wanted to start out with like that expectation, because I know a lot of people can get really stuck in that loop of, I just need this in order to make cash. And it doesn't work like that.
100%. And one thing to just throw out there before, we move on, I think it's important for people to know that, a lot of these business magazines now, they've turned into cash cows as well, right? They have figured out how to monetize in different ways. When you and I first started out in media, years ago, the landscape was completely different. So I think it's important for any small business owner, no matter, again, what level you're at in your business, whether small or large at this point, to know that these magazines offer different things. Obviously, the goal is to get editorial, right? We want to get that third party endorsement. It's the best scenario when a journalist comes to you and says, I believe so much in what you're doing. I want to write about your story, write your story, share your brand with the masses. But as an alternative, a lot of these business magazines, which to your point, you were saying, you see a lot of these Polly the influencers post that they were in this, that, and the other. Most of them have bought those opportunities. And a lot of them are advertorial, which means you're basically buying like an ad to get the editorial write-up. So I think it's important for people to know, and decipher. And it's not to judge the people that are doing that, but just know that it's not always what you see when you see them post those things.
Yeah, so because I think where you're going with it is it can bring out a lot of shame and a lot of misbelief. Like, God, in order for me to really make it in the online space, or as a coach, or as a empowerment speaker, or as a podcaster, or an author, I have to have those, endorsements, next to my name in my bio or in my media kit or on my website. And you think you have to have that in order to have the success, which, believe me, these publications aren't stupid. These are major companies. They know that. Do you realize, Nicole, at least twice a week, I get hit up in my email and my DMs to be in Inc., Forbes, Entrepreneur, Yahoo Finance, and they want like 10 grand for it.
100%. Oh, I believe it. Of course, because this is that side of the business. That's really how things are. There is a lot of pay to play going on. But to your point, I just think that people should know that, publicity it's part of marketing, right? I mean, there's so many different ways of marketing right now. I think that it is important. Of course, I feel that way. I feel that there's a lot of power in it and a lot of value in it. Is it for everybody? No. Do you need publicity? No. I know so many brands who are doing incredibly well that have never even touched press, and they're just growing organically, right? So it's really it's a luxury, and it's an add-on if you can bring it into your business. But like I said earlier, I want people to know that they are impactful as they come into the world and with their business without needing all these things if they choose not to.
So let's go on this pay to play thing, because recently, and full, disclosure, you guys, Nicole is my publicist. Okay. Like, I don't hide shit. And I just engaged with her like a month or two ago. Like I didn't build any of this using publicity. Like she said, it's like it really is kind of like a luxury add-on when you get to a certain point where you're ready to have more exposure and more opportunities. So that's where I was at with it. But what do you think about this whole pay to play? Because I know a lot of the people listening have also gotten those DMs,
Sure.
Maybe have even gone to pitch themselves. Like, I know you pitched me to a local newspaper here, and because of this whole like COVID thing, they said that they're down, they're down writers. Maybe they are, who knows? They're down writers because their advertising dollars are down. And they said, we're not really doing many editorials. We're doing these advertorials, which means basically I would have to pay for them to write a story about me. Do you think there's any circumstances where it's worth spending the money on an advertorial?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say I started seeing a lot more of this, we call it in the industry, this pay to play, like you said, come up really more probably the last decade. I feel like when I was starting out, 20 years ago, I mean, you did straight pitching and it was traditional media. Again, with the landscape changing so much and there's so many media outlets out there, I think especially now during COVID, you have a lot of these outlets who are short-staffed. They've had to furlough people, lay people off. They've got to meet their quarterly budgets or their numbers for the quarter rather. So it's going to be pretty common that this is going to come up. Now, will it continue like this on forever? No, I think obviously there will be a point where things get somewhat back to normalcy, but I see it even with local TV segments. I'd probably say half of the local TV segments I work with are doing pay to play now. Some are not. So here's my 2 cents on it. If someone really wants to start building a reel, for instance, for TV, and your dream is to eventually get on all these national shows, if you have some extra budget to spend maybe, $200 for this local market segment here and maybe $150 or $200 for a second one over here, you think about it, you spend a couple $100, you might end up with 1 or 2 really strong regional local media broadcast segments for yourself. And why is that important to spend money on if you choose to? Well, it allows you then to kind of align with an editor and start building a reel for yourself, which I feel once you get into a place where you have a reel and you've got a little bit more of a digital kind of, it's just a highlight reel, so to speak, of yourself. Those are the things that do bring in attention from larger, producers and larger opportunities. So I feel like, again, if somebody has the extra budget to do so, there's no harm in doing it. I think for advertorial with print, where it gets a little tricky and with some of the online stuff is it typically will say that it was a sponsored post. So I think the trick is for the consumer or the client or the business to just be a little savvy to the particular media outlet and really do some research. And you can see pretty clearly sometimes what's paid for and not. Sometimes with print, like especially local newspapers, they won't write that it's, an ad. You'll get a full article and it won't seem to the general person reading it that it was an ad. But a lot of the online outlets are writing sponsored. So again, I think it's just a preference, for the person and really comes down to their budget. But to put a couple of $100 into some things like this to just build a little bit more into your portfolio or your media kit or your video reel, I think is worth looking at if it feels aligned for the person.
I find it so interesting just because, like you and I started in this business, around the same time. I find it interesting what you're saying is there are TV outlets and there are print outlets that actually will run your story that you pay for, and it doesn't say this is an ad, or in, even at the bottom of it, like in fine print, like this is sponsored. I mean, that's, I would think just because of how strict, like, for example, I do a lot of Facebook advertising for clients. You have to be, or even influencer campaigns. I mean, you have to state that it's a sponsored post or it's a sponsored ad. So I'm shocked you don't have to do that with traditional media.
Yeah, well, you definitely do. I mean, I think, for instance, like in a magazine or a newspaper where they would get away with it is the article would run on one page and then maybe there would be a small ad from you or the company or your brand on another page, well back into the pages. But again, to your everyday consumer possibly getting that newspaper in the mail, they might not be savvy enough to realize that you have an ad in there and also an article and connect the dots. You see what I mean? So, so I think that's how some of the newspapers get away with it. From TV, I think what you see is a lot of, it would say maybe like brought to you by, right? There's things like that. But again, your everyday consumer or person or viewer maybe watching some of this might not even understand what that means. So I think it's just about, consumers being savvy enough to realize that this is going on. But I will say, as someone who, I mean, once in a blue moon, I bring a client a pay to play opportunity to just say, hey, here's an opportunity if you want to pursue it. I just want you to know about it. But for the bulk of my 20-year career, majority of the placements I've gotten for clients or at the agencies I worked at or on my own have been because I've been hustling my rear to, get editorial opportunities, which is the goal, of course, for all publicists. Because the last thing we want to do is have a client pay to work for us and then have to pay for additional opportunities. I do think there's a time and place, though, to consider them. It just depends on the client, if they're launching something, and again, the opportunity. But I think, you can look at some of these things. Obviously, the ones you were talking about specifically in these larger business outlets are quite hefty in fee. And my personal feeling is to spend $10,000 on something like that, where it's going to flat out say, sponsored article. I don't know if that's really worth it. But, again, I'm not sitting in the seat of somebody who really, really wants to be in that magazine. So I think it's just a personal preference.
So if somebody's like, okay, like I'm hearing what you guys are saying, and I would be open to building my reel and paying. Is it as simple as calling up their local TV news stations and talking to the advertising department, or do they need to go through a publicist like yourself?
No. So one of the things that I pivoted in doing the last few years, especially with my business, was actually teaching small business owners how to get their own press. Because again, I feel everybody's worthy of it. If you just know a few things to do, you can really start to garner opportunities on your own. So to answer your question, if somebody had time right now to just do a little bit of Google research and make a short spreadsheet list of, top 3 to 5 maybe broadcast outlets, for instance, in their local regional market, you can call the stations and ask to be put in touch with the advertising rep for the station. They all have ad reps. The ad rep is going to be more inclined probably to take your call because they're going to assume that there's probably some money or a sale behind it, right? So you can go the traditional way of asking for the talent booker or the morning show producer to pitch editorially. But yes, as a backup, if you go through the ad person, they should be able to say to you, here's what it would cost to do a sponsored segment for us. Perhaps it's 3 to 5 minutes. Here's what you get. We would, you get the full segment, plus it ends up on their website, et cetera, et cetera. So anybody can pick up the phone or Google that and get right to the person.
Right. If you want to pay for something, just like anything in this world, if you're willing to pay, it is definitely a lot easier in order to get the very thing you want. When you want, true, free, genuine, traditional press, that doesn't mean it's hard. You just have to either hire someone, like Nicole, like you have to hire a publicist that does the work for you, or you've got to do the work yourself. So what does that work entail to get your own free press?
Great question. So I think it's interesting when I do workshops and people listen to me explain some of these steps and they go, wait a minute, I don't have time for all that. And then I can say, well, that's exactly why people like me exist, right? Because as small business owners or large business owners, we're wearing so many hats. You're managing teams, you're working on content, you're doing day-to-day management. There's so many pieces to running a business. PR is another piece that energetically now, if you choose to work on or focus on, is going to get inserted into your plate. So what I would advise anybody listening, if they're really serious about PR, is to think first, do I have the energetic space to bring this into my day-to-day? Because it is going to take time and consistency. And the reason I bring that up is because the first thing anyone really needs to do is either take an hour or two a week right now, or they can delegate it to an intern. But the key to start is really researching and diving into who your local regional media players are. So just like I had suggested, to take time to research your broadcast outlets. Imagine now building that list out, and then you've got a grid separately for your local newspapers, your local magazines. You can go right onto their websites. Oftentimes you'll see the editor email right there, or a contact number to call. You can call and ask them, who's the editor that covers sports? Who's the editor that covers beauty or fashion, or just general features? that's the email and the contact name you want to build into your grid. So getting really organized and building this kind of Excel spreadsheet or Google spreadsheet of your own kind of media Rolodex, as I call it, is a great place to start, because you never want to just start pitching blindly without knowing that you're going to the right journalist. I can't tell you how many times I've had people that reach out and they say, oh, that person didn't get back to me. And I said, well, did you look to see, was it the actual editor that covers your niche, right? Or your area of expertise? So we really want to research and make sure we're going to the right person. Organization is key. I think the other piece is that you really want to make sure that you've got your tools and your ducks in a row. So do you have, B-roll and video of you, either speaking at an event or something for your business? Do you have high-res JPEG, beautiful high-resolution images that are lifestyle shots of you as the business owner and the face of the brand, and or also beautiful shots of your product or some action to your service that you're launching? Imagery is key. Your landing page, a website, brick and mortar open. You kind of want to make sure you have a place to point people for a purchase. Again, you've got all your tools, as I like to call them, in place, your key messages, your social media is on point. You want to go to these journalists and reach out to them in an email where you're going to grab their attention. Just like you said at the beginning, you get one shot, and your goal when you reach out to them is to show them that you are a trusted, reliable resource that they can use again and again. So if you go to them with all the things they need at once, they're going to see that you're really there to play, and I'm sure you'll get a much faster response.
So you're saying that Sally Joe, who has a health coaching business and has all these entities that you discuss, like she has the beautiful photos, she's been working her social media, it's professional, it's nice, she has a website, she does have some video, she has all that stuff. And if I'm going to make up a name of a city, but I don't know. I can't make up one. Let's just say it's Bakersfield. I'm thinking of some small town like Bakersfield, California or something. And she goes and researches the local Bakersfield Times or whatever it is, finds the health, that there's whoever covers the health beat, if they even still call it that. But do they?
Something like that. Yeah, probably.
And so whoever covers health news gets her name and emails her cold. You're saying there's a chance that emailing this reporter cold will get a response?
100%. I see it happen all the time.
But don't these people get, I know back in the day when I was a reporter, and then when I was an anchor, I gotta say, maybe even, and it'd be fair to say 40 emails a day I got.
Oh yeah. And that's, you hear it now, especially right now during COVID. I'm hearing so much stress from all the journalists right now. They're getting inundated hundreds of emails a day. So here's the thing with the outreach. You, in a local market like that, you're an editor at a local, regional, small market paper like that. The reality is they're looking for content and they're looking for new people to feature. So if you can go to them and show them how you can really help their readers, how you can add value, how you can provide tips in a pitch that's going to get something really valuable to their reader to implement into their day, am I guaranteeing they're going to respond? No, but do you have an opportunity there? For sure. I see it happen all the time. I think the key is really differentiating yourself in the email, honing in on the top 3 to 5 things that you can really, like I said, bring to their reader that's going to actually improve their life. And focus on, the timing of it's so important too, right? Are you launching something? Do you have a new physical location that's opening? We have to remember that the news outlets, just as are looking for a news hook. So especially when it comes to a local TV show or a local magazine or newspaper, they want news. They love to bring news to their readers and their audiences first. So any kind of new launches for a product, any new openings, if you just can give general expertise tips based on your area of, your niche, people are always looking for health and wellness tips, right? So it doesn't always necessarily need to be, I'm launching this or starting this. Position yourself as an expert to provide tips just as well. That's just as powerful.
Yeah. And just like everything else I teach you guys, even for your email list, for your social media posts, how you start a video, you have to hook someone in. So that subject line, I would imagine. I mean, I can just speak for myself back in the day. The subject line I would read, and I would read maybe if the subject line got my attention, I would maybe read the first couple sentences. And if you didn't get me there, I mean, I'll be straight up. Journalists are lazy as fuck. And so you make my life, you made my life easy. I would use you over and over and over again. If you were reliable, you could, I even had people writing my shit for me. And then whatever, you made my life easy. Yeah. We were all set. So are there any kind of tips, tricks in terms of like maybe increasing your odds of getting their attention?
That, first of all, what you just said, like, I'm like sitting here throwing fake pom-poms in the air, because literally time and time again, a journalist will say to me, oh, we keep coming back to you or your clients because you just get everything in on time. You make our job easier. That is the goal. No matter, again, if you're just starting out, if you've never had press, or if you've had a ton and you're in a different phase of your business, our job is to make the lives easier of the journalist or the reporter or the producer, so that, again, they see us as that reliable expert or person they can count on. So in an email, to your point, if somebody's just reading maybe those first few sentences, you really want to hook them with the news in that subject, right? XYZ location opening, perhaps there's a time you can put in there, things that are really going to grab their attention in the subject. One thing that, is kind of just some cardinal rules in terms of pitching or industry wide is you don't want to send a really lengthy email to these folks. To your point, they're just not going to read it. So we want to catch them in that first initial few sentences. You want to hyperlink under your name. When you write your name and you introduce yourself, you want to hyperlink to your website or your landing page. You want to keep it super clean. You can hyperlink to some Dropbox images in there of your location of business, your online courses, your workouts. You want to keep things really streamlined and clean in the email. We don't want to overload it with a lot of attachment videos or heavy photos. Oftentimes, it'll land in their junk mail, or they just won't open it because it's such a cluttered email. So keeping things really clean and simple, bulleting out even a few key points. Like I said, those top 3 to 5 things I can speak to your audience about, boom, boom, boom. Or, here's why we're providing a solution with the opening of our new location, right? Like as if you were just telling a girlfriend or a friend of yours, here are the top 3 to 5 things that make us so unique and that we're providing a solution around. Like, what are those things? And the more and more you start writing that down or journaling it or just saying it out loud, you'll see how much more confident you are in drafting some pitch emails.
Do you feel that it loses credibility if the owner of the company or the face of the brand is pitching themselves?
Oh, such a good question. So 20 years ago, I would have said yes, because we were in such a different media landscape. But today, I will tell you, and I can say this because I'm about to make a major pivot and get out of this industry, as you know, after 20 years. But a lot of journalists prefer to work with the person behind the brand now more than the publicist. It's not because the publicists aren't making their jobs easier, but this is just kind of a common trend now I'm seeing across the board. Media have no problem at all working with the brand representative. So if you are going to reach out to them, you've got to build that trusting, meaningful, long-term relationship with the journalist, which means you've got to meet your deadlines. You've got to show them that you're here to deliver great content and show up with your A game on camera and all the things that they're expecting. And the goal is really for the client, right? You want, as a brand owner, you want to have your own personal relationships with the media. So I think we are in a day and age where it's relevant if you're pitching directly or you have someone doing it for you. The reason people have someone like me or an agency is because they don't have time, right? That's why people like me still exist. That's why agencies, we exist, because we have relationships. We can get some things done faster. We can move the needle faster. We take all the work off your plate. But at the same time, I have so many students. I've had 60 students over the last year. I mean, half of them have ended up on magazine covers, because I gave them the tools and then pushed them and said, here's how you got to go. Here's the roadmap. Now go do it. And they did. And they still got all the coverage.
Yeah, and they have to do the work, right? That's why I hired you. I could pitch myself. Like, I know what to do. I have quite a few press contacts. But you know what? I've also been telling myself I was going to do that for the last year, and I never could get around to it because I know that you have to be organized. You've got to keep track of your stuff. You can't just kind of phone in an email. This shit better be eye-catching. It better be good. And then the other key part is following up. So last time I checked, right, you're selling yourself, okay? Pitching is selling, marketing selling, it's all selling. Last time I checked, you're not just going to pitch someone a story idea and then they're instantly going to respond. So what do you suggest in terms of following up? Like, how long should someone wait before they reach out again? Because I know all you guys listening don't want to be pushy or annoying or anything like that.
That's a great question. Yeah, I tell people, you don't want to be overly aggressive, right? We definitely don't want to start out having them feel like on the defense that we're just trying to push an opportunity to them in an aggressive way. So I say, you send the email, knowing again that they're getting inundated and sifting through a ton of stuff. Maybe give it, a day or two. A couple of days. If it's, something you don't hear back on, can you circle back, as I like to say, and just send them a note and say, I just wanted to put this back at the top of your inbox. Look forward to connecting on this further when you get a moment. Oftentimes when you do that, they'll say something like, oh, thank you so much for this. Either I'm going to file this and use it for down the road, or I actually can't use this person at this time. Or they could come back, which happens a lot, and they say, thank you so much for reminding me. It's been such a crazy day. I would like to talk to this person. How about on this day? So, again, just lowering the expectation, knowing that if you're going to follow up, if they don't pick you for something or they don't take you, we've got to remove our ego and just know, and this is something I preach all the time, that if that opportunity didn't materialize or manifest, there's something around the corner that will. So a no from a journalist or a media outlet does not change our value in our business or as ourselves, right? It is, if it works out, great. If it doesn't, not meant to be, we move on to the next. But I definitely think sometimes that follow-up gives you that, you're putting it again back at the top of their inbox, and sometimes they just need that little gentle reminder.
How can someone decipher if it's really worth their time and energy, or even money if they decide to hire a publicist, to invest in PR? Like, is there a certain point in your business, in one's business, where it can make sense?
That's a great question. So, I think back to like a lot of the big brands I worked with in the health and wellness, fashion, beauty space. Like, if you have a company that's launching like a massive consumer beauty line or a product, and they're bringing something, like global to the market, a PR campaign can do wonders for a launch like that, right? If somebody's launching an online course or a podcast, or even a local fitness studio down the road, can press help bring awareness to all these things? Can it bring customers in the door to sign up for workouts? 100%. I think that it's a great to think about if you're about to launch something. But again, without the expectation, right? Launches, new product arrival, new pivots in your business, or if you just want to get out there more as a brand. I mean, all of these things are, kind of constitutes for somebody to get press. We just have to, again, focus on what's the hook? What are we going out there with right now to get you that coverage? I think I've seen it a lot of times. People start a business, they think they have to invest in PR. They wind up putting themselves in a hole financially, and you don't always have to do it. So my feeling is, if you're going to engage with somebody on a press level, whether it's an agency or a freelancer, please do your research. Like, talk to clients who have worked with them, talk to, people that know the agency. I've seen so many people, spend thousands of dollars and get into these large monthly retainers. And, you know, maybe around the launch, they get a little bit, but then it kind of dissipates because there's nothing new to talk about. So don't feel like if you are launching something, you always have to engage in press. If you have the budget for it, it's certainly not going to hurt as you're launching something brand new to the world or to the market, you know, to put a little extra buzz and push behind it. So I think those are good things. Also, when you have, you know, new offerings, I mean, clearly you look at all the brands we consume as consumers in the world, you see some of our favorite brands, they're constantly launching stuff every quarter, right? They're on that cycle. So the PR people that work with a lot of those big brands are doing quarterly campaigns every quarter to get those new products out into the press. So I think it just completely depends on the brand. But like I said, I think it's not worth putting yourself into a larger hole financially, and give yourself the grace to just table it and bring it in when you feel that you're financially secure to invest in it, or if you have the time and energy to start pitching on your own.
Now, do you offer some kind of a course, or are you still a virtual workshops or anything where someone can learn how to do it themselves?
Yes. So what I'm doing right now is I'm doing kind of a series of one-off calls with people to do straight consulting and kind of walk them through a lot of what we just talked about, really getting them a little roadmap going for their business and how they can start pitching on their own based on their upcoming launches or things that they're doing for their specific business. And it's really helpful when I have these calls because you can see the light bulbs start going off in people's heads going, hey, I never thought about that, or I never thought about that, or I didn't even think that I could do this. So I think it's just about being confident enough, again, to know that you're worthy of it. And sometimes just an hour Zoom call can put somebody into the right mindset that's going to shift them into being more comfortable being out there, you know, in front of a camera or being written up, and also receiving that, right? Because you've got to be open to receiving press. Like, it's a beautiful thing to see yourself out there in that way. And I think it's got to be somebody who's willing to really have their heart open to receive the opportunities.
And where can people go to book one of these calls with you?
Great. So people can email me at Nicole at theprconcierge.com, or you can DM me on my Instagram. My personal is at Nicole Meiden. The work page is at the PR Concierge. I respond to DMs all the time, and it's super easy. We just do a 1-hour Zoom call, and it's a straight strategy call. So I'm doing no pitching for you, but really helping you, guide you to learn how to do it on your own.
Love it. So now we're going to pivot you guys into the other thing I said we're going to talk about today. And, you know, I love having women on, men too, but women on who have decided to do some sort of pivot in their life, and what that looks like. I believe it helps you guys get permission to do it for yourselves, and it builds, you know, like that confidence muscle. Like, if she can do it, I can too. So you heard Nicole mention that, you know, she is doing a pretty big transition. So why don't you tell us about that?
Yes, big transition, probably going to scare the bejeebers out of a lot of people, but that's okay. So, you know, as I mentioned earlier, I have been doing the same thing for 20 years. Now, that 20 years of doing publicity work has been in all sorts of arenas. I used to live in Los Angeles. I relocated to Scottsdale 3 years ago. I went on an entire kind of soulful exploratory journey, and I'm in a beautiful, beautiful place in life. But you know, I only knew this type of work. And so I climbed, my time in LA was a combination of climbing the corporate ladder in PR, working in entertainment like everybody else in LA wants to do. You know, I worked for celebrities, I worked on films, I worked on TV. Then I did PR for consumer products. I've touched so many amazing brands that, you know, everybody kind of covets. And I feel like I've done a lot of things in my career that I feel very proud of. I feel very passionate about, that I absolutely adored. But, you know, I think what happened for me in the last few years specifically is I started my business again, as you know, 3 years ago after I moved to Scottsdale, had barely any. I had no network here when I got here. I knew like 2 people from college. So I started from scratch over at 37 years old, brand new city. I had to build a whole new network, hustled my rear off, you know, built my business, launched workshops, launched my podcast. I was doing all kinds of amazing things. And I know you'll appreciate this more than anybody, but I was just in this riding high alignment. Everything was flowing. And then literally got a phone call one day that knocked me on my ass. And I found out that my father had died suddenly. And it took my breath away, and it changed my life in ways that I would never fully have time to even explain on this show. But now 2.5 years later, and 1 week later after that, I lost my grandfather. So basically the two, father male figures in my life that, provided, a certain relationship for me were both ripped from me within 10 days of each other. Being a single person, being 40, running my business on my own, having to choose to deal with that grief in a healthy way with healers and spiritual coaches and, mental health folks, and still run my business and still provide for my clients and still keep myself afloat financially. I mean, I was just under such darkness and such pressure. And to the outside world, a lot of people couldn't tell. There was so much going on here internally. When I got to the other side, I should say, really, of the grief, and really after a good 1.5 years of grieving my father and releasing it, because that was the key in the healing, actually learning how to release it and move into this next phase of energy that I'm in. What I didn't realize as I was grieving my father, my body had shut down. I gained a ton of weight. And again, I wasn't judging myself, but this was just the reality of what was going on. You don't realize often when you lose a family member, the impact it has on you. So it was having financial impact on me. My health was deteriorating. I was just losing control with all this uncertainty. But the biggest blessing and gift that came out of all of this is that I realized, as the emotions were so heavy of grieving my father, I was also detaching and releasing my old identity, which has always been Nicole, the PR girl. That's how I've been known to people. I've always done the same thing. So I have been labeled as this woman who does this thing, who helps everybody, who's there for everybody, does this, connects you to this. This has just been who I've been to people, right? I needed to change the story. And so the new story is that Nicole is okay with the fact that she's had an amazing career in PR for 20 years. But I'm so excited now to release that to the universe and know that there is going to be a pivot. I'm probably by the end of this year not going to be running this business anymore. And I can't tell you how freaking amazing that feels for me, because I'm so excited about the next chapter. And here's the kicker. I don't even know what that next thing is yet. And for the first time in my entire life, I am okay with the unknown. And I can't tell you how many people, even during COVID, people are like, oh, uncertainty, it's making me crazy. And what do you mean you don't know what you're doing? And I'm like, well, when you survive some of the things I've had to, and I know you will get this, you have to get to a place where you make out with uncertainty in your life. And now I'm embracing the unknown. I know I'm protected. I know my angels have my back. I know the universe has my back. And all of those shifts and all those things happen to get me to this place, which is surrender. This is the goal, I think, for every human in this lifetime, or any business owner, to just surrender, knowing that maybe for a period of seasons in your life, and for me, it's been these 2 decades, and especially these last few years as a business owner, I feel great about the work I did, the impact I created, but I'm also okay stepping away from it and know that I will create impact with whatever else I'm doing. I don't need a business to define me anymore. And that was huge for me to release. So I feel like anybody listening, of course, start the business if you want to, of course, do all the things, but just be even keel with yourself and know that if life happens and something in your soul is not connecting to it, 10 years down the road or 5 years down the road, it's okay to change your mind, to do something else.
Yeah, I mean, that's how ProjectME with Tiffany Carter came about. I mean, I still have my other business that I've now had 12 years. I knew I had to do something else because I kept falling out of gratitude. I was dreading work. I wasn't feeling excited by it. There was no passion in it for me anymore. and I knew I was being called to do the next thing. So if you guys are having that like restless discontent, and it's not just because you're like PMSing or having a bad week, it's like Groundhog's Day. It's every single day, and you're like forcing and pushing yourself. This is a true sign that you need to give yourself permission to be open to doing something new and different. It could be radically different.
Yes.
Like Nicole may have a kale farm. We have no idea, right?
Sounds great.
I mean, I actually didn't know that about, so it's not like you necessarily know what it is you're going to do next, for real?
For real. And I know that people who are closest to me can't even wrap their head around that, because I've always had the plan. I've always been 10 steps ahead of everybody. Now, let me be clear though, there's action taking place, right? Like, I'm not somebody, obviously like you, and I'm sure a handful of your amazing listeners, we're not people that just sit back, right? We create, we make things happen. We get shit done. And so I am consciously creating movement and energy and putting things into place behind the scenes to see where it's going to take me. But it's not like in 3 months, I'm going to become a realtor. That's probably not going to happen. I don't think my soul would enjoy that. Not that it's not for anyone else, but that's probably not going to be the case for me. I think it's more that, I know that this next few seasons are going to be also a lot about my personal life, which excites me to no end, because I'm sure, as many of the listeners know, especially who are female, we know when we dive into our businesses, which is wonderful, it can overcome us. And for me, it's really just this balance or I don't even know what balance is, but I guess the best way to try to balance or do all the things, that's what the next phase is going to be like. So it will be something that I enjoy. It will be something where I'm surrounded by amazing people who are appreciative and respectful and all the things that we all desire. But it's not going to be any more for me about a title, or I need to climb this ladder or check this thing off my list. I think it's going to be a lot more flow and just authentic to probably this phase of my life.
Oh my God, I love that. And you guys, that didn't happen for Nicole overnight. She went through the dark night of the soul.
Literally.
Had a process. Right. Like we have to do the inner work. We have to get still. We have to sit in the dirty diaper, as I call it, which is incredibly uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But I wanted you guys to hear, from another woman, what that looks like, and that's okay. I don't care if you're a doctor and you spend all these years in school and all this money and you have this prestigious title and you're like, this sucks. I don't want to do this anymore. And you want to do something totally different. This is your life. This is all you get. Like, who gives a shit what people think? I left a very prestigious title twice. I was on TV. People kissed my ass. And it's like, I knew people were going to think I was crazy for leaving, but I had to do it. My life depended on it. Then I did that again in the world of pharmaceuticals, which is also very prestigious. And then that had a lot of money attached to it, unlike being a newscaster. And people flat out thought I was crazy. And like PR is similar, right? I'm in PR. It's like very sexy and glamorous and all these things. But who gives a shit what other people think if you are a mess?
100%. Look, it took me until my late 30s. Turning 40 as a woman, it's a groundbreaking time. I kind of had a plate full of nuggets, if you will. I was grieving my father. I was grieving my grandfather, turning 40. This all kind of happened within, 2.5 years of one another. So it was a roller coaster. I am so embracing my 40-year-old age. And I think there's so much wisdom and so much self-love that just comes when you shed this worry about, I could give two shits same about what people think. Like you just learn to detach from these things and you feel so much more joy. I mean, of course, people are going to be like, why would you give up something, you're great at or that you loved? Well, because they're used to me being the single Nicole PR girl. If I change my mind now, it's going to change their world. I can't sit and continue to do something that's not fueling my soul anymore to make them happy, right? So I have to, you got to get really good at just listening to your gut. And I always say gut feelings are guardian angels. So we got to pay attention. We know that when we haven't paid attention to our guts in other times or seasons of our lives, that maybe we should have. So, I've gotten really good at that, just exercising that muscle a little bit and paying attention to what feels good. Life is too short. I already felt that way before my father died, but of course it escalated me to really think about, how do I want to spend my days and who do I want to be around? I just want to be around awesome people, and whatever the universe has in store, I know it'll be the right thing. And like you say, you always end up exactly where you're meant to be. So I don't even worry about it anymore.
We really do, you guys. I can promise you, I couldn't think of some of the things that have happened to me. I couldn't have dreamed it. The universe is God, whatever you believe in. There's a path is already laid out. We just have to be open and willing to trust and follow it. If you are loving this episode, loving the message, all the things you've learned, take a screenshot so other people can have, experience this for themselves. Take a screenshot, share it on social media, tag me at ProjectME with Tiffany, tag Nicole at Nicole Myden, NicoleMyden. If you're multitasking, like I know so many of you are, my handle at ProjectME with Tiffany, and then I will share it and make sure Nicole gets tagged. So we know that, this episode really resonated with you, and pass this along, because there's someone in your life that needs permission to pivot. And sometimes all they need to do is hear it from a couple people who've done it for it to all click in place. So be the catalyst for them and help them do that. Nicole, thank you so much as always for just being you and being real and telling us all the things.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for having me. We could sit and talk for hours. I love you. I got your back forever. And I think you're amazing. And this platform is incredible. So congrats to you. And yes, look forward to connecting with you all.
Thank you. Bye, babe.
Bye.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please write a 5-star review on iTunes. Not only will this make me super happy, but it will allow more listeners to find our special show. Simply help me help others.